celebrating our manga anime digital event, #made. If you've been following us on social media, head over to bluefinbrands.com to shop amazing deals on anime and manga collectibles. We have tremendous savings on Studio Ghibli items, like 20% off all Ghibli plush, which is incredible. So if you want to be the big spoon or the little spoon with Totoro, you're more than welcome to do so. We also have buy two, get one free on Ghibli puzzles. These little guys are amazing, some of which look like posters from the films or iconic scenes, as well as like even stained glass puzzles and 3D puzzles. I actually put together a 3D GG together on my desk, and it was absolutely delightful. And certainly not last but not least is the buy two get one free on Studio Ghibli towels. They are adorable, and you want to get your hands on those while you're at bluefinbrands.com. Feel free to enter our contest. We have an Ultimate Gundam Universe giveaway where we are actually giving away 11 figures. It is the entire wave, or all 4 waves of the Gundam Universe figure line, and that also includes the newly released Tall Geese and Burning Gundam. Those will be hitting stores momentarily, and you can be the first on your block to get your hands on those. So definitely do that. You can get to that contest by visiting bluefinbrands.com/contest, and from there you can enter to win. There's 35 different ways, but only one winner. And again, you'll walk away with all 11 figures, which is incredible. So now that all that is out of the way, I know it was a mouthful, it was a lot, we had a lot going on, but I'd like to introduce you to all of our panelists. Of course, we have Aya, who is part of our marketing team. She's an integral part to our marketing team. And how are you doing today, Aya?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Aya. I'm the graphic designer of Bluefin. And then Ghibli is my favorite all the time. So it's fun to join today's live stream.
Thank you for being here. It's awesome. And we also have AJ, who is the community manager for Storm Collectibles and Team Writer, and another part of our lovely marketing team. How are you doing today, AJ? You are muted, my friend.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm doing great. I'm ready for this Ghibli one. Did not realize that. My bad.
Oh, it's all good. We also have Mr. Sean, who is a brand manager for Studio Ghibli. How are you doing today? I see you got all kinds of fun goodies behind you there.
I got all the goodies over here. I'm excited to be here.
All right, excited to have you. And then, of course, not to bury the lead too much, but we also have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dave Jesteadt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
What is all that behind you? Is that books or albums? What do we got?
No, these are some. We got some DVDs. We got the GKIDS line. Some other stuff that I've just been collecting over the years. All our samples and things. So just trying to recreate the office environment at home, as I think so many other people are. So
right. I have a lot of distractions behind me from my office at home.
That's right.
It's like I need to play some video games. Maybe play some Transformers. I don't know. It's hard to stay focused with all the goodies behind me. Mm-hmm. It's nuts. So let's get started. As far as GKIDS goes, we're celebrating Studio Ghibli. Where did your Ghibli career begin? How long ago did you get exposed to the wonderful world of Ghibli?
Yeah, so for me personally, I was actually was fairly young. I was a kid. I don't remember the exact age, but my parents bought My Neighbor Totoro on VHS, the classic original Fox edition. And I remember that over the course of several years, I think we had about 5 or 6 copies of that film, because we kept just kind of handing it out to people. Like families would come over and to parties or whatever, and we'd say, "Oh, you have to see this film. You never heard of it. You got to see it. It's going to be great." So the copies just kept disappearing. We have to go buy another one. And so that was sort of my earliest foundational memory, was just sort of experiencing that film, which I think is an entry point for so many different Ghibli fans. And then a very different kind of film, more as a teenager, being able to see Princess Mononoke in theaters, in actual theater, in the late 90s was also very foundational. I think at that point, I was very much into sort of the new wave of anime on the series side that was coming out at that point. And to see something like that in theaters at that level of kind of this action epic in kind of a smaller Midwestern town where I'm from felt just like amazing. It's like walking through a door.
Sure.
So I mean, that's pretty much the most, I mean, that I think was really the kind of the start for me of just really respecting the studio and everything that they were capable of, and of course, Spirited Away. Then from right after that, and from that point on, I mean, they're basically just. I think the rest is similar to a lot of people in terms of just the DVD exposure and everything like that.
Sure. And it's great too. Like, just here in the West, it's always been so tricky getting your hands on anime, and now we're in a world where you can literally just access anything you want from your phone, which is incredible. We were joking about this earlier in the week, where our first episodes of Evangelion were on VHS, and just what a chore it was to watch this stuff. You walk into a video store and you'd be like, "Excuse me, do you have any anime?" And they look at you like you're just speaking some other language. You're like a cartoon? What are you talking about, kid? Get out of here.
Back then it was Japanimation.
Right, exactly. Japanimation.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. And then now we have it on, HBO Max, which is incredible. Other foreign markets actually have Studio Ghibli films on Netflix, which is really cool as well. So the world is slowly but surely getting their fill of Studio Ghibli, which is fantastic. Now, how long have you been with GKIDS?
Since day one.
Wow.
2007.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
You know everything. You know all the secret exits and entrances and caves and everything.
I do. I've seen everything that's come through the door. I think it's been really just a really pretty incredible journey from my business partner Eric and I. We started as a 2-person company, and we were 2 people for a long time. And so to then have transformed into kind of a larger distributor that handles a lot of different titles has been really exciting. And I think Studio Ghibli has played just an incredible role in that journey, because I think they were one of the one of these early companies that really kind of believed in the things that we were doing, and by providing their stamp or their imprimatur on our activities, instantly legitimized basically everything that we were trying to show about what animation could be, and a different kind of model for American audiences.
No, that's great. And then, one of the things that I always think about is just like the film festivals, like, each month, or, seeing but revisiting a movie theater and watching these classics. And with the pandemic and theaters just, literally on the brink of just like closure, it's so nuts to see what 2020 has brought us. And is there anything that GKIDS is doing to kind of sort of bring that experience to people's homes, like just to kind of to be there for them, like it's always comforting in these dark times to be able to pop on like Totoro on HBO Max or whatever, but I know that a lot of friends, they get together, it's like a ritual. We're like, hey, we're going to go see a Studio Ghibli film, and it's got to be hard for a challenge for you guys to be able to reach so many people during a pandemic.
It has been. I mean, I think the films did launch with HBO Max when that service launched, I think in late May, which was really was planned for a year in advance, and but the timing couldn't be better, just in terms of that was kind of their late entry into growing comfortable with digital and streaming. They had just allowed us to place the films on digital platforms like Apple iTunes or Amazon Video or things like that. I think starting around Christmas the year before. So all still very, very recent compared to 20 years of DVD and theatrical play. And so I think that was a really helpful kind of moment, that their change of heart kind of around digital happened to coincide with a pandemic, when we're all forced to be inside, and the ability to view things together, the ability to view things repeatedly, the ability to sample the entire catalog. And I think that's been one of the really satisfying things. I think a lot of people may know Spirited Away or may know My Neighbor Totoro, but do not know the nearly 24 films in the library, which includes some very remarkable deep cuts that I think when you have nothing but time and you have access, I think gives people a greater access to the library. So I think that's been a really positive development. I think it has been very tricky, I think, this year. I think one of the big casualties that's been really unfortunate was the previous several years we've been doing this Studio Ghibli Fest with theaters, where it plays a film every month, nationwide, in hundreds of cinemas. And unfortunately, we were not able to do that this year, just because of the entire theatrical system and just the constant closures and reopenings of theaters, and just trying to decide what's best for the audience. And so I know that Ghibli has really loved that theatrical presentation, the ability to see their films on an actual gigantic screen with an audience. That's how they want you to see these films. And so we did have to take a year off from that, but we're looking forward to returning next year with hopefully the biggest and best lineup we've had. And I think people will hopefully be very excited when the time is right to be reunited with the films and cinemas as well.
Sure. Now you mentioned that the HBO deal, that was basically a year in advance that was all going down. Is it fun for you to know all these secrets and people ask you questions and you're like, you can't answer? You know that in a year something really magical is going to happen, but you're just like, oh man, playing it cool. Even with family and friends, they're like, dude, give me the scoop on Ghibli, and you're like, just back off.
Yeah, it's incredibly stressful. It's really stressful. I mean, you have these NDAs, obviously, that we sign with everyone,
Sure.
and you have, and I think more than anything, it's just Ghibli's trust in terms of how the whole operation is going. But the process of getting these films to digital is really exciting because that's, again, this kind of this long holdout, and they're almost legendary. You look at all these different press articles for the films that aren't on streaming. There would be different ones every single year, and Ghibli was always on there as something that's like this big white whale for like, why is this not on a streaming service yet? And to know that was in the process, but also you have to continue to kind of give comment about why they were so reluctant, I think that was a difficult time to really kind of parse what every single word in the sentence meant, so that you were not like giving away anything, but also you weren't trying to mislead anyone. So right. I was definitely feeling much better when it was actually publicly announced, and I think generated the right amount of excitement for this sort of big watershed moment for the brand and for viewers.
Sure. I know Sean up there on the top right there, he was all kinds of giddy when it was announced that it was becoming available.
I was like, finally I can watch all the films.
Sure. Those young kids, they're digital. They're in a digital world.
Yeah, but I'm still waiting for all those steelbooks. I'm watching them, and then when the steelbook gets announced, I'm like, pre-order. So eventually I'm going to have all 24 of those steelbooks on my shelf. So hopefully the shelf can hold all that weight of steel.
All that steel, yeah.
We'll see.
It's equivalent to an aircraft carrier, and you got to find a bookcase that can hold it.
Yeah.
That's nice. What about you, Aya? You had some questions for Mr. Dave, correct?
Yes. I feel like my question is what is the like appealing points you think for the in Ghibli, bring the Ghibli thing in US market? Is there any difficulty to bring the like Ghibli brand, like which is like kind of different than anime, and also but still it's the Japanese culture. So is there like any difficulty for GKIDS to like how to bring the like new type of animation to US market?
Yeah, I think it's really it's such an interesting brand to work with because they have a good number of films, but also not a huge number of films. It's not like they have hundreds of films that you could see. You could it's a catalog that you could individually choose to watch in a month if you really wanted to, and you set your mind to it. You could actually probably do it much sooner if you were really dedicated, but
it's easy in times like these, right? You're just like next.
And
the perfect time.
Yep.
And it's positioned so it has kind of this strange position because I think within the animation community, they're absolute legends. I think when you talk to animators who work in any major Hollywood animation studio, everyone reveres Hayao Miyazaki, reveres Isao Takahata, reveres each of these films. And within the world of anime, I think there's sort of this feeling of, for people who are really into anime or Japanese animation, I think there's often the kind of perception that Studio Ghibli is like an entry point for a lot of people. And so it's kind of like, well, duh, like, it's like Studio Ghibli. This is not like the brand new, thing. This is like it's like saying like to someone like, have you heard the Beatles or something? It feels like really redundant and kind of crazy to the point where I think it's really just because everyone has these films or knows these films. But then within the broader, the actual mainstream community, I think there's still a lot of discovery that can be done. So I think that even for something like Spirited Away, which is like their number one film in terms of the DVDs sold and streams and tickets, so any metric you choose, basically the number one film, compared to an absolute gigantic blockbuster in America, still a little bit more of a niche film. And so that's kind of an interesting position to be in, where something is so culturally recognizable to a very large and active niche, but is still somewhat in that niche area. And so it's been really exciting to see the ways that kind of more availability of the films, whether that's on digital, whether that's bringing things to theaters, to watch that kind of conversion for people who say like, oh, I don't really do foreign films, or I don't really do animation, or Disney is like kids films, or animation is kids films, and you have all these kind of just assumptions or things that go into it. And I think that Studio Ghibli, across their entire library of titles, really challenges each one of those things. I think really to see that kind of that light happen for the first time with friends and just even random people it's really cool. I think that's one of the best things about being able to work with them.
No, that's great. It is something that's magical about just that style of animation where it just pops and it as soon as you see it. You're just like it just kind of teleports you to like this sort of this golden era of animation that's so weird and I don't, it's hard to explain, but when you see it, it. I think that's fantastic. Like the Ni no Kuni video games, right? When I first saw that, I'm like, why does this look so familiar to me? And I've never even heard of it before. It was so funny how that happened. I'm just like, man, is that Ghibli? What am I looking at right now?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have a super identifiable house style, I think. And I think you can see that even in the films that aren't directed by Hayao Miyazaki or by Isao Takahata, by the studio co-founders. You continue to see the character design. You see the lush backgrounds. There's kind of this aesthetic that carries over from film to film. That's in a really it's a very interesting, very interesting way of thinking about it.
In a way where it's almost like just one giant universe where it's all happening at once.
In one place, yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's all Ghibli canon almost.
Yeah. Although if Studio Ghibli has one thing to impart, it is not a shared universe of characters. The characters all exist in their own.
No, totally.
Stories and things. Because that was one of the early kind of conversations we had. Is like there's clearly this house style, and I think there's a lot of speculation about how different stories kind of, if there's unofficial sequels or prequels or things to characters that carry over, and it's interesting to see that they really do work on a film by film basis as individual stories, even as they have all these kind of hallmarks for the visuals that people identify with them.
Sean probably has on the other side of the camera that you can't see. There's red string connecting all the different characters and theory and numbers and crazy characters.
There are like little cameos that you do catch sometimes. Like
every once in a while. Yeah,
I've for just work purposes, I've seen Totoro about 30 times, and there's the goat. And only recently I realized that goat is represented as a plush in Spirited Away in the baby's room. Same goat, same like bell collar and everything. So there's those kind of like homages to previous characters in other films that you may like kind of pick out. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
Hayao Miyazaki loves goats. So.
Right. So do I. My entire Instagram feed is nothing but goats and like pajamas out like hopping all over the place.
They're very cute.
Oh yeah, Justice, animal lover.
Yeah, I am the resident animal lover. You know what else would be really cool too is sort of like a Ghibli coffee table book. I'm a sucker for coffee table books, and the animation is so amazing. It would be so cool just to kind of see that one page is sort of an unfinished sketch or drawing, and then just watch the evolution of how the final cell is created and how it looks. I mean, it's such a wonderful world, and it's this fantastical world, and to see that like on my coffee table right now, I'm just kind of getting a little giddy just like, thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I think that's really something that just the level of craftsmanship involved is so insane to me, and the fact that it looks so effortless on screen, I think, is both a testament to the talent that they have in terms of putting these films together, and it's also just. But I think it's good to remember just how much craftsmanship is involved with hand-drawn animation. I think one of the last trips I took before the pandemic was actually visiting Ghibli, and we went to the museum for the Ghibli Museum for one of their new exhibits, and they had like in between paintings for just a handful of scenes in their films. And you look on the other side of some of this plastic, and there's little numbers noting what all the different colors should be, and then there's like this whole color palette, and that is one single frame of animation in the film. And to think about someone who's just like leaning over their chair, like hand painting something so that you can see it. I mean, it's incredible. And it's really something that I think is really beautiful about that art form.
Sure, it's a lot of work. I have zero artistic ability. My stick figures look like they have scoliosis. It's bad. So someone like Aya, who is an incredible artist, she's able to watch these. Like she says, it's her favorite, right? So I mean, Aya,
Yeah.
what are some of your what is your go-to Studio Ghibli film? What is the one that will always just sort of rock you to sleep that you love it so much?
Oh, it's the House Moving Castle. I
Ah.
think that's the film I watched the most in my life. And then I had a DVD set and figure, and then also, I think like the first exclusive collection of DVD come with the original film.
Mhm.
In the movie
Oh, cool.
theater,
Like a film cell?
yeah, film cell, and then I still keep it because it's my favorite film. And then the voice actor in Japanese version is famous, like super nice looking guy. So I really like the actors and the
It
way
sounds like
he
you're describing
voice.
everyone on this live stream right now.
Mm.
And his voice is really match the character. And then yeah, I think the House Moving Castle is kind of hard story if you watch it one time. I think first time when I watched it was the movie theater, but just watching multiple times, it get more deep inside and then kind of get more meaning behind. So I think that's the good point about Ghibli movie that like can watch multiple times too,
Right.
and also depends on the like my situation. Like if I'm the like still kids, like I can watch it as like kids perspective, but after grown up, I can change my perspective to enjoy the different way. So I think Ghibli movie is something like enjoy multiple times, and then the meaning to me is changing over the life.
No, that's a good point. And I mean, the rewatchability factor is always key to like, really cool,
Mm-hmm.
film and art. And, like Sean just saying that he noticed something just the other day on something that he hadn't seen. He's seen the movie 100 times and he finally realizes there's a little goat there. And so what about you, Dave? The first time, Totoro was one of your staples in your house, right? Now,
Yeah.
as an adult, when you rewatch it, are you still spotting stuff that you didn't notice, or did the tone shift for you at all, or do you respect it more or less as time has gone on? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think Totoro is one of the. I mean, it's one of the true masterpieces, and there are so many in the catalog. But I think that's a particularly interesting film to have experienced both as a kid, not super young, but still as a kid, and then to sort of check in with it sort of throughout different periods of life, and then finally be like working on it as an adult. The tone does kind of shift. I think early on you kind of sense that there's things happening in the background. I think kids intuitively understand some of the emotional stakes that the characters have in the movie. It does feel sometimes like there's no villains in there, there's no real conflict, but there is a real sense of for people who you haven't seen the film or need reminding. There's the mother figure is in the hospital and is sick, and I think the kids are coping with it. And the Totoro figure appears in the forest, and they have these kind of adventures as a way of sort of exploring a new house in sort of uncertain circumstances. And so going back as an adult to it, there's this sense of sort of melancholy to all of it that I feel like is really kind of looking at more from the parents' perspective, from their father who's with them and is kind of helping encourage their imaginations and encourage them to go explore the forest and do all these things, knowing that he's also in this serious situation, which is all handled off screen and kind of just purely in your imagination. I think it's really powerful. And so I think that's one of those films I respect so much because it's really, I think, challenging to create a kids or family film that has sort of an innate respect for a kid viewer and treats them as real adults, treats them as real humans, treats them as someone who's able to kind of recognize some of this stuff, even if they don't have the words to put directly to their teens yet. And then to kind of see that, I guess, proven out as you have more life experience, they're able to say, oh yeah, that's kind of, I was picking up on that, but that's definitely, now I can see that is really cool. And that's a really great part of Totoro.
Sure. And like, I mean, just the very idea of having to deal with potential loss, go out, have fun, enjoy yourself, be a kid while you can, because, God forbid your mother doesn't make it through this. you're gonna grow up really, really fast. And you know, we all deal with grief in our own way. And I mean, even exploring different ideas and ways of how this outcome happened. I mean, who was it? AJ, were you the one telling me about like the theory behind the kids not surviving?
Yeah. There was like a theory a while back where people saw it as the perspective as like the kids had passed away. That's why like the whole missing shoe kind of deal and everything like that. And I remember I watched it like I don't know how many times I've seen that film so much, like watching it like let's say 100th time or something. In that perspective, it's like, oh, you could view it like I guess if you viewed it as that, like it does put a different perspective. So it's interesting to see like even though no matter how many times I've seen it, if someone told me in a different perspective to look at it, the movie is still amazing to watch in that perspective.
Right. No, that's great.
Yeah.
And that is funny with kids movies or animated movies, whether it be Disney. You know, man is often perceived as just the villain. You know, like Bambi, the hunter shoots at every single creature that moves on screen, and it's a little weird. I mean, I don't know, it's bizarre that happens, but I mean, there's so many movies where a parent gets killed at the beginning of them. In the first 10 minutes of the movie, you're crying because you know so and so loses their mother or their father, and the child has to find a way to mush forward and to move forward. And that's always depressing, and it's beautiful in its own way, but it's always really sad. I mean, just like watching Up, and like 3 minutes into it, I'm just like sitting in a puddle of my own tears. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most scary or the saddest movie ever made. And so it is crazy how movies, even like Studio Ghibli films, can have that impact on you. And it's just great. You're able to connect on a human level with these animated films.
Mm-hmm.
It's very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think even at like Spirited Away, you know, she's trying to get her parents back, and like they're just eating and transforming. And as that, like for me, as an animation major, like watching all this, I'm like, man, this movie is fantastic. Like story wise and animation wise, like look at all the little details that's happening on screen. And seeing it in now like different format. Like so, back I think it was like a VHS, and I was at a furniture store with my parents, and I saw like Spirited Away playing. I'm like, wow, this furniture store is playing it. And then I remember not too long it was like now available like on DVD, and like we have to get that. So now like you know in like a different form, like oh now I could watch it on streaming service. Like oh fantastic, this is what I want, even if I already own like a physical copy.
Right. No, that's the cool thing. That's the key, right? Accessibility. It's like a good book. Like that's why I like just getting like paperbacks, because I can just hand it off to somebody else after I'm done reading it. It can take the abuse, it can take the beating, and once they're done with it, they can hand it off to somebody else. And I think with digital, that's one of the coolest things is that it's just readily available. Not that you should share passwords with your friends or family, but if you do, the accessibility is there. It's like when you made a sweet mixtape back in the 80s and 90s and you wanted to let your friends listen to that really cool music. Same concept. Let's talk about the music, actually. Is there a particular score, Dave, that really resonates with you in any of the Ghibli films?
Boy, I think the Joe Hisaishi scores are all really magnificent. I think he did a lot of different scores for most of Hayao Miyazaki's output at the studio. I think the Princess Mononoke score is really contributes so much to that feeling of that epic swell, which I think is if you want to get a great epic movie going, you basically need big widescreen vistas, which the film has, all these landscape shots, and then you need that kind of super orchestral score that just sounds like you're sitting in the middle of a complete symphony. And I think that to me is always very transporting. I also have, I think, a real soft spot for Totoro as well, which I think is a little sparser and also kind of plays with that concept. I think is really playful and really complements the on-screen action in a wonderful way. But I think that's true of almost all the scores. I mean, it's just really they've always, I think, taken music really seriously in their films, and it's hard to. I'm trying to recall if there's any score that's a little thin. Everything just kind of tends to be really well looked after.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. What about you, Sean? I know you're into music in movies. Was there a score that resonated with you in any of the Ghibli films?
For me, it's actually, you mentioned Ni no Kuni. Ni no Kuni, I'd say the score for that, like I know it's done by the same artist for all the Studio Ghibli films as well, and that one was probably the best I've heard. The only thing is I've played all the games and it's the same exact score, so it's like it's on repeat all the time in my
Right.
head after I played it. Like I was playing Ni no Kuni when it came out on the DS in Japan. I was actually in college at the time in Japan, came out, and like I was playing that, came out on PS3, was playing that, now I'm playing it on the sequel on PS4, and like it's just on repeat in my head whenever I play that game. It uses the same
Sure.
like adventure theme and everything like that. And so after
It's
I'm
good to know
done-
it's the same because like I played through Wrath of the White Witch and I loved
Yeah.
that game so much. That was incredible. And the little island with the guy with the familiar that has like the lamp post on his nose or whatever, his little magical island or whatever. I thought that music was so cool, and I immediately went on like Apple Music and I'm like, oh, I'm totally downloading this. And then before I knew it, I added the whole freaking soundtrack to my phone.
yeah, so I've got the whole like when you go on the world map and it's like do 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 and
Totally.
stuff like that. It's like every time after I'm done playing that game, it's like I'm like walking to the kitchen. It's like do 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 do.
Right.
What an
That's funny.
adventure.
It's
Exactly.
in your head, and it's like I love the song, but it's like it's like get out of my head.
Oh man.
Great
Power
stuff.
of music, man.
Yeah, I know.
Love it. Good stuff. Let's see. Sean, do you have any questions for Dave?
Well, I kind of how Dave was mentioning, a lot of Studio Ghibli films, they definitely don't have like the normal villains. It's usually kind of misunderstood characters that almost befriend the main character at the end. Like when you mentioned Totoro not really having one, after seeing it so many times, that's why the goat stands out to me, because the goat was pretty much like that's the biggest antagonist. It like shows up, tries to eat May's corn, and she runs away, and then they lose May, and that's like the major plot point. So I'm wondering, what out of any Studio Ghibli quote unquote villain, who stands out to you the most? Like, who was that kind of a misunderstood character who befriends them at the end, or kind of even in some cases, yeah, there is that villain who is a straight up like villain who's after the main character and trying to stop them.
Yeah, and I think all the films are really unique in this way to not rely so much on kind of a villain dichotomy. I think it's very easy to set up a villain sort of as this kind of like world-ending kind of thing that has to be overcome by the heroes in a classic journey or triumph kind of thing, and to have it instead just be conflict that's interpersonal or is just about different kind of goals or different understandings of the world. And to be able to drive an entire story's worth of conflict out of that is pretty remarkable. I think for me, what's always sort of stood out is Princess Mononoke. I think does this really well with that you spend so much of the time in the film with Ashitaka and with the forest as this kind of idea of like, okay, obviously the forest is dying, the forest is being exploited. And the natural instinct is to side with both the protagonist of the film, the person you're spending the most time with Sam, Princess Mononoke as well, and then with all these creatures and things, and you see their conflict, and then as you kind of get into the film and they journey to Irontown, to the human area, then you're introduced to an entirely different perspective, and there's so much hate and sort of violence sort of fueling both sides, but you can really see, I think Miyazaki did just a really wonderful, like nuanced job, really portraying, I think, different kind of human aspects of why industrialization would happen, why this group of people who are themselves on the margins of society as we know it are involved in destroying the environment around them for their own survival and gain. And I think that to be, there's any number of ways you could tell that story in the case where it's just like storming this castle of sort of these like really kind of evil, pig-headed, human people, and restoring justice to nature and the environment who you're unanimously siding with. And I think the sort of muddier picture that emerges where there's kind of this sort of unwinnable conflict that someone is going to lose, and it's someone that doesn't necessarily deserve to lose. I think is what creates so much of that film's depth, and I think just that sort of principle is present in so many of their films. I think as a way, and I think that's what people respond to often when you kind of talk about rewatchability or you talk about the the different layers that kind of get peeled back from seeing the films again, or different people's approaches kind of coming from where they are in life, either age or background, circumstance, all that kinds of stuff. I think that's really, what gives a lot of the films their power.
Sure. I mean, and Princess Mononoke is really powerful because that is something that we see all the time, right? Like, I mean, man just destroying our planet is how it ultimately boils down, and we need resources, and we need this, and we need that, and it comes at a cost, and we see that in Princess Mononoke. And I mean, I remember a couple of years ago watching a video on Twitter of this orangutan attacking a bulldozer that was destroying the rainforest. Like, this is my home, and I was like, oh my god, this is. Like, it really resonated with me. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And then it shows that it's to create, like, palm oil, basically. And then it shows all the products that palm oil's in. I'm like, okay, well, now I got to boycott this and this and this and this to save the orangutans, And I took it very seriously. And I try really hard to be cognizant of our footprint that we're leaving on this planet, which is tremendous. And to see, we were talking about this on our last live stream, like just art reflecting the times and just how that has an impact and what we can learn. And if we're kids and we're seeing this and we're asking questions like kids always do, like, why are they destroying that forest? And what can we do to stop them from destroying that forest? Just having that dialogue, having those conversations. And I think that's very important. And they were able to give that message. At least that's what I interpreted when I'm watching it. I was like, oh my god, the world's ending. What can I do to stop it? Let me save the orangutans. Like, what can I do? And I think that's a pretty
lover.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy, but I mean that's really what I saw. I mean, I was literally watching a Princess Mononoke in this Twitter video that I was watching of an orangutan attacking a bulldozer. To me, it was the same thing. It was nuts. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm the crazy.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's Miyazaki has so many well-defined. Anyone who's read anything, or he's a great interview when he does them. He's a very political person. He has a lot of very strong opinions about things, and yet that doesn't really translate to the films in terms of becoming like message movies or something. I mean, I feel like
Right.
it would be pretty easy to make Princess Mononoke's villain like literally ExxonMobil, and they're not. And it's just like that. I think that's not to say that he has a very environmentalist-driven message. I think he has a lot of deep concerns about the way that humanity operates. But I think that kind of informs the storytelling without overwhelming it. I think that's really something that's greatly to his credit.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think even from the start with Nausicaa, when it's the story about man and like there's the society that's trying to they're trying to get that egg or revive this like ancient power, and Nausicaa is just like, well, the forest is creating these spores, and we need to like respect it and like respect the Om and everything, and it kind of has that like being living with nature and not trying to like destroy it.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. It is hard to do.
And like,
Yeah.
like Eyes, you've got like a Nausicaa item on your desk as well right now, right? Like,
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that the glider right there?
is it the glider? I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my personal collection.
Oh, nice.
I love it. It's light on, if you guys can see it.
Oh yeah. That's great.
Cool.
Yeah,
Have you taken it for a spin? Have you jumped off your roof with it in your hands?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, you got one too.
Sean's got one too.
I got one too. Had it on my
Man,
desk the entire time.
Everyone's in the cool glider club.
I'm not in it.
I'm not either. What the heck?
Gotta pick one up. It's we still have a couple left, I think.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
It's
Nice.
really
Where can you
important
get that,
to-
Sean?
You can get it at bluefinbrands.com
All right.
/ Studio Ghibli.
You also have a lot of plushy stuff back there. Are those on
Yeah.
bluefinbrands.com as well?
I believe so.
That big one's awesome. I gotta get that. We actually have, Dave. We have this one that's like, it's like life size. It's like 4 feet tall. It weighs 1 billion pounds, and everyone at a convention just has to come and touch it and cuddle it, and they try and take it off. Like they'll literally try and
Yeah.
stick this big thing under their shirt and walk out of the convention with it because they just want it so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
I've seen
got,
that.
one-
Great one.
Everyone wants to ask, like, how can I get it home? You don't?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because so many
First class,
questions
have a
that.
chat.
yeah, off limits. Then we got to spray them with the stuff that you spray in bowling shoes to disinfect it because everyone's just trying to get their hands on it.
Uh-huh.
Don't touch it. I see you have some tattoos. Do you have any Ghibli characters
I don't,
on your
no.
body?
No, that's one step not taken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm a video game guy, so I got like video game stuff on my body. It's a commitment. I'm not gonna lie, it's a commitment. Whenever you're ready to take that plunge, feel free to do so and let us know. Report back. Send us photos. Tasteful tattoo photos.
I think Dave, yours is Orson Welles, right?
It is Orson Welles, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
his 70s, full, magnificent, bloated side. It's great. It's my creative spirit animal.
Perfect.
But yeah, we've had a lot of we have employees, we have interns. A lot of people have the Ghibli tattoos. That's an easy way to get a head start in an interview. So
Sure.
it's I think another kind of really easy like hallmark in terms of just like benchmark for just how impactful these films are. It's just how much they mean to people. It's the iconography of Totoro and everywhere.
Sure. That's great. Every time I go into the forest, I'm always looking for little kadamas. I'm like, okay, where are you guys?
Yeah.
When I clean the house, I'm like, all right, you soot sprites, you better beat it. You're gonna end up in a trash can. I'm gonna feel really bad in a second.
Yeah, I think even when like Spirited Away had come out, like that whole tunnel thing, I got cautious of tunnels when I was living in Japan. I'm like, I'm not entering this tunnel. I am going to stay away from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
Or do
like,
the thing with your fingers to get rid of the evil spirits or something. Do
Yeah.
this and then have the person
Right.
Mhm.
That's the way to do it, man. I'm like, Kadama, protect me from the Blair Witch. I do not want to die out here. That's why I don't go camping.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm a camping kind of person.
Nope. I'm not interested. My
But
goodness.
I do have one more question for Dave. I do have a question about what you can share about Earwig and the Witch.
Yeah. So I guess for those who don't know, Studio Ghibli is working on 2 films right now. One is Hayao Miyazaki's new film, which I think is it's in active production, but it's still going to be another year or two, another couple of years maybe before we see it. The other film they actually finished earlier this year, and it's called Earwig and the Witch. And this was just a new project for them, directed by Goro Miyazaki, his son, who's also directed From Up on Poppy Hill and Tales from Earthsea. And this is a really interesting project because it was done in partnership with NHK, the Japanese broadcaster. And unlike, I think, news of Hayao Miyazaki's film, which has been sort of, I think a lot of people don't, know the sort of day-to-day what's happening with it, but it's been known that it's been, in process now for a very long time. Earwig and the Witch, their second project, was a very secret kind of project that I think was not publicly revealed really until they announced in the spring that it was going to be selected for the Cannes Film Festival, which was ultimately canceled. So they kind of created this film as sort of a surprise, and it's coming very quickly. So we're releasing it early next year. I think there'll be a release date announcement pretty soon. For those who have seen, they just released some new images from the film. I think it's shocking to a lot of people. It's their first CG animated film using sort of 3D CG. And I think for a lot of Ghibli fans, I feel like there's some sort of like distrust or like, why have you forsaken me as the sort of the keepers of like the hand-drawn flame. But I think that's what was really driving this project for them, was kind of exploring this art form, because CG is so prevalent. I mean, that's the animation mode now that every studio and everyone uses. And I think it's a really cool project and a narrative idea to try to use CG to say, like, what would the Studio Ghibli style, that kind of style we were talking about earlier with these characters and these landscapes and everything, what would that look like transitioned into this 3D CG format? And I think they did a really amazing job in terms of capturing all the different kinds of like those character design quirks and everything. So it's really neat. And so if I have any wisdom to impart to the people, I would just say, give it a shot. I think it's a really, for them, it's a grand experiment. And I think it's a really interesting push into a different sort of creative space for them, and just from how they've kind of kept it secret to how quickly they've released it into the world compared to the normal multi-year cycle. I think, with this pandemic and with the kind of just the general way that 2020 has been going, this is like Studio Ghibli's little gift, to you and the fans. This is like a brand new film that's coming very quickly, and yeah, we should be able to share more information. I think in the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah,
No, that's great.
looking at that, I remember when they announced it and I saw it, I was like, oh, it is 3D, and I was one of the first like oh, but it's not 2D, because as an animator myself, like I like the 2D look, but because I know that Ghibli is like they've always done well regardless of its art form, I'm seeing it, I was like, I trust it. I trust that it'll do well. I am always partial to new kinds of art form itself. So seeing it, I was like, I will trust it. I can't wait to see it as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I think it turned out really great. And it's based on the story. It's the last book from Diane Wynne Jones, who's the author of Howl's Moving Castle. So there's kind of this like within the world of Ghibli, these authors that they kind of return to. I think that's also really nice. Really nice part of it. So yeah, I'd say just keep an open mind, keep an open eye for those new details, and I think it's a really great family film. I'm really excited to share it with folks in just a couple of months.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, and that's the cool thing, right? Like the old films are always going to be there. They're preserved. They're immortalized. So you can always revisit the traditional style of the animation that you have grown to love and accustomed to over the last 4 decades now. So I mean, it is cool to see this evolution take place, this experiment. You can't grow without change. So I mean, I think that it's important to try and prance outside the box, and I think it's a good thing that you have. The studio has such loyal and passionate fans, people that are going to go out there and support them no matter what. Sure, it's a shocker at first, but I think eventually you'll get into it. I mean, I mentioned video games earlier. Like when I always played Mario as this blurry, blocky mess, and the first time that he was in HD, I was like, what? That's what he looks like? Oh my God, he's beautiful. We have the same body type. It's amazing. I could be Mario. And so, I mean, I just think that it's all part of the learning curve, and I think people will come accustomed to it. And it's all about the story, right? I mean, that's going to drive it all. People love the storytelling with Ghibli, and I think that it'll be a resounding applause when it's all said and done.
Very well said.
I think so. Yeah, and Hayao Miyazaki's film is still 2D that he's working on, so
Right.
you have that in your back pocket too. So they're looking out for everybody, I think. Yeah.
Best of
Well,
both words.
That's great. Does anybody else have anything else to add?
Nope.
Yeah, I think I'm
Alright.
good.
Perfect. Well, remember to visit bluefinbrands.com during our manga anime digital event. While you're there, check out all the amazing deals that we have, especially on Studio Ghibli. 20% off of plush. You also have the buy two, get one free on the puzzles and buy two, get one free on the towels. Awesome deal. While you're there, also check out our contest that we have at bluefinbrands.com/contest, where you can enter to win the entire collection of Gundam Universe figures. That is 11 figures, all 4 waves, 1 winner, 35 ways to enter. Do it. I know you want to. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at BluefinBrands, and as well as at GKIDS Films, right? Is that what it is?
Films, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So definitely follow them for all your latest news and announcements regarding all things Ghibli. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your week.